I will never look at life the same way after what I experienced. It still haunts me, even now, just thinking about it. This happened some time ago when I worked as a part-time cashier at Starbucks. I couldn't get enough hours to fully support myself, so moving out of my parents' house was a distant dream. My parents constantly nagged me, their subliminal jabs always implying that it was time for me to leave. It was suffocating. I'll never forget one particular confrontation with my dad. I was doing laundry when he stormed in. "Hey, Jason, can't you ask for a raise at work?" he barked. "I can't exactly do that, Dad. I'd probably get fired," I replied, trying to stay calm. "Well, can't you work somewhere else? I'm gonna need your room soon. Charlie's getting bigger." Charlie was my baby brother. "Can't Charlie stay in your room a little longer?" I protested. "I said I'm gonna need your room, damn it," he snapped. "Figure it out. You've had plenty of time." After arguments like that, I dreaded going home. Instead, I'd linger at work, procrastinating, just to avoid the inevitable tension waiting for me at the house. It was during this rough patch that I discovered a local karaoke bar down the street from work. It became my sanctuary, a place to unwind and escape my miserable reality. I quickly became a regular and got to know the staff on a first-name basis. "What'll it be tonight, hot stuff?" Sally the bartender teased with a smirk. "The usual, Sally," I replied, sliding into my routine. The bar was always lively, with live performances that drew decent crowds. One performer, however, always stood out, Katie Falling. She had an incredible voice and this magnetic stage presence that captivated everyone. "Doesn't she have the prettiest eyes you've ever seen?" an older guy once whispered to me during her set. I nodded, mesmerized. She really did. Katie had a dedicated following, and I'd occasionally chat with her after shows. One night, I worked up the courage to ask her out. "Hey, Katie, it's me again." I started nervously. "Who are you?" she asked, her tone dismissive. "Jason. We've talked a few times after your shows." "I'm a big fan," I stammered. "I think you're the best singer ever, and you're really gorgeous." Thanks," she said flatly, clearly unimpressed. Then unexpectedly, she grabbed my phone and typed something in. "Here you go, Jason. Hope to chat more," she said with a sly smile before walking away. When I checked my phone later, I realized she'd given me a link to her OnlyFans account instead of her number. Disappointed but curious, I couldn't resist checking it out when I got home. The subscription was $10 a month. It was steep, especially for someone scraping by like me, but my curiosity got the better of me. I shamefully entered my credit card details and began exploring her page. It was filled with risque content, a side of Katie I'd never imagined. I felt a mix of guilt and intrigue, but eventually called it a night. A couple of weeks later, I noticed Katie had stopped performing at the bar. No one seemed to know why, and it gnawed at me. One night, I decided to revisit her OnlyFans page. To my surprise, her profile had drastically changed. All her old content was gone, replaced by just 3 new photos. In them, Katie wore oversized sunglasses and posed in what looked like a decrepit wooden cellar. The vibrant bedroom backdrop she used to have was gone. 5 things immediately stood out. Her status said, "Active 5 minutes ago." Every photo showed her in sunglasses, hiding her eyes. The setting had shifted to that eerie cellar. All her previous content had been wiped. A shadow in the photos indicated someone else was taking the pictures. Something about it all felt wrong. I decided to message her. "Hey, it's Jason from the karaoke bar. Just wondering why you stopped performing." 10 minutes passed, with no reply. Feeling desperate, I sent another message. "If I send you $5, could you send me a video of yourself smiling?" To my shock, she responded almost instantly with a locked video for $5. I paid and opened it. In the video, Katie stood motionless, still wearing the sunglasses. A deep male voice off camera commanded, "Smile for the camera, you vermin." Katie's lips curled into an unnaturally wide smile, as if she were being forced. The sight sent chills down my spine. I pressed further, sending another $5 for a new video. This time, she spoke. "He's not my friend. Don't ever say he's my friend. He's more than that. He's my everything, my one and only love." Her voice trembled with fear. The same male voice cut in. "Good girl. Let's give the boy what he paid for." The man's face briefly appeared on camera, and I felt a jolt of recognition. I'd seen him before, but couldn't place where. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "I bet you'd love to see Katie's pretty eyes, wouldn't you?" With a cruel laugh, he reached over and removed her sunglasses. Her eye sockets were empty. I slammed my laptop shut, heart racing, and stumbled into bed, too disturbed to sleep. I never visited her OnlyFans again, and as far as I know, her account vanished soon after. But I'll never forget that night. To this day, I still visit the karaoke bar, hoping, against all logic, that I might see Katie again, standing on that stage, singing with those beautiful eyes, whole and unbroken. You know, I never thought I'd end up sharing this story, but it's been eating at me ever since it happened. If this saves even one person from going through what I did, maybe it's worth it. My name's Eric, and I'll never look at life the same way again after what I experienced. It all started innocently enough. I was just another guy in his 20s, stuck in a boring job and living alone in a tiny, dingy apartment. My life wasn't exactly exciting. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. My evenings were usually spent scrolling through social media or binge-watching random YouTube videos. Then one night, I stumbled across her. Her name was Ava. She was tagged in a random post from someone I followed. A girl with striking features, piercing green eyes, and the kind of smile that makes you feel like it's meant just for you. She wasn't like the usual Instagram influencers. There was something magnetic about her. I checked out her profile, and within minutes I saw the link in her bio, OnlyFans. I'll admit I hesitated. I'd never signed up for something like that before, but curiosity got the better of me. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. $10 a month to see more of Ava. Harmless, right? When I subscribed, it felt like stepping into another world. Her page was filled with the kind of content you'd expect. Photos, videos, even some flirty captions. But there was something about the way she interacted with her fans. She made you feel seen, like you weren't just another faceless subscriber. She even sent me a private message that first night. "Hey, Eric." Smiley face. "Thanks for subscribing. Let me know if there's anything special you'd like to see." Ava. I knew it was probably something she sent to everyone, but it didn't matter. It felt personal. For the first time in a long while, I felt like someone noticed me. A couple of weeks went by, and I found myself checking her page constantly. She'd post new photos every few days, and sometimes we'd exchange messages. I wasn't proud of how much money I was spending on private requests, but it became addictive. She had this way of making you feel like you were special, like she cared about you. But then, things started to change. At first it was subtle. Her posts became less frequent, and when she did upload something, it felt different. The bright, airy backgrounds of her photos were replaced by dark, shadowy rooms. Her captions were shorter, less playful, and in her latest pictures, she'd started wearing sunglasses. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was just a new aesthetic she was going for. But then I noticed something else. In one of her photos, there was a reflection in the sunglasses. It was faint, but I could make out what looked like a figure standing behind her. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I sent her a message. "Hey, Ava, everything okay? Your latest photos seem different." She didn't respond right away, but a few hours later, I got a reply. "Everything's fine, babe. Just trying out a new vibe. Do you like it?" I wanted to believe her, but something about the message felt off. It didn't have the same warmth as before. It felt automated, almost like someone else had written it. A few days later, she uploaded a video to her page. It wasn't like her usual content. She was sitting on the floor of what looked like an old basement. The walls were made of rough, splintered wood, and there was a single, flickering bulb overhead. She was wearing a plain white dress, her sunglasses still on. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring into the camera. After about a minute, a man's voice spoke from off-screen. "Smile for your fans, Ava." She hesitated, but then her lips curled into the most unnatural, forced smile I've ever seen. It sent chills down my spine. I left a comment under the video, asking if she was okay, but it was deleted almost instantly. I tried messaging her again, but this time, I got no reply. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. In the background of the video, barely visible in the shadows, was a door. And on that door was a symbol I recognized. It was from a true crime documentary I'd watched about a string of kidnappings in the area. The victims were all women who had been lured through social media, and they were never seen again. I knew I had to do something. I contacted the police and showed them the video, but they didn't take me seriously. They said there wasn't enough evidence to act on. Frustrated and scared, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I scoured Ava's profile for any clues, analyzing every photo and video she'd posted. Eventually, I found what I was looking for, a small detail in one of her older photos that showed a street sign through a window. After some Googling, I managed to narrow it down to a location about an hour away. I drove there the next day, my heart pounding the entire time. When I arrived, I found an old abandoned house that matched the one in Ava's recent video. The front door was ajar, creaking in the wind. I almost turned back, but I couldn't. If Ava was in there, I had to help her. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of mildew and something metallic. Blood, maybe. I found the basement door and descended the creaking stairs. The room was empty, except for a chair in the center and a camera on a tripod. There was no sign of Ava, but scrawled on the wall in red paint, or blood, was a message. "She's not yours. Stay away." I ran out of that house and didn't stop until I was back in my car. I deleted my OnlyFans account that night and blocked every trace of Ava from my life. To this day, I don't know what happened to her. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that house, about the man's voice, about that forced smile, and I wonder if I was just another pawn in something much darker than I could ever understand. It started as a joke. You know how it is. Late nights with nothing better to do, scrolling through Instagram, Reddit, whatever. My buddy Mike sent me this link with a smirking emoji and the caption, "Bro, check this out." I clicked it, not thinking much of it. The link took me to an OnlyFans profile. Her name was Lila, and she was gorgeous in that haunting, almost surreal way. Long black hair that fell over her shoulders like a waterfall, pale skin that seemed to glow, and these piercing gray eyes that looked like they could see straight through you. Her page wasn't like the typical ones you hear about. Sure, she posted the usual seductive photos, but there was an edge to her content. It felt personal. Her captions weren't just flirty. They were almost poetic, like she was inviting you into her world, a place that was darker than it seemed on the surface. Mike dared me to subscribe, and I laughed it off at first. But the next day, out of sheer boredom, I did it. I mean, what's $10, right? When I joined, I noticed something weird right away. Her posts didn't feel staged. She wasn't posing in some fancy hotel room or on a tropical beach. Most of her pictures were taken in dimly lit rooms, places that felt lived in but unsettling. There was a strange aesthetic to it. Candles burning in the background, antique furniture, mirrors with cracks running through them. What really hooked me, though, were the videos. They weren't like anything I'd seen before. In one, she sat in front of the camera, staring into it without saying a word. The room around her was pitch black, except for a single candle. She leaned in close, her gray eyes locking onto the lens, and whispered, "Do you believe in fate?" It was eerie, but I couldn't look away. I commented, half joking, "Only if it leads me to you." She liked it almost instantly. Then a few minutes later, I got a private message from her. "Fate brought you here, didn't it?" I stared at my screen for a long time before replying, "Guess so. Lucky me." What followed was a conversation that felt intimate. She asked me about my life, where I lived, what I did for work, what kept me up at night. She seemed genuinely interested, like she actually cared. It was a nice change from the usual emptiness of online interactions. But then, she asked something that made me pause. "What's your address?" I laughed it off, thinking it was a joke. "Why? Planning to send me a postcard?" Her reply came almost immediately. "Number, I just want to see you." That's when the red flags started popping up. I told her I wasn't comfortable sharing that kind of info, and she didn't push it. But her tone shifted after that. Her messages became more cryptic, her posts darker. One video in particular still gives me chills when I think about it. In it, she was sitting on the floor of her room, surrounded by candles. She was holding a small glass vial filled with something red. Blood, maybe? She looked directly into the camera and said, "Once you let someone into your life, you can never take it back. They're a part of you forever." She tilted the vial, letting a single drop spill onto her finger, then smeared it across her lips. The video ended there. I was unsettled, but I couldn't bring myself to unsubscribe. It was like she had some kind of hold on me, like I was trapped in her orbit. Then one night, everything changed. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard it. A soft tapping sound, like fingers against glass. My heart jumped into my throat. It was coming from my bedroom window. I live on the 3rd floor. I sat up, my pulse pounding, and stared at the window. The tapping stopped, but I swear I saw a shadow move across the glass. I told myself it was just my imagination, just the wind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there. The next morning, I got a message from Lila. "Did you sleep well?" I froze. "Yeah, why?" I replied, trying to keep it casual. Her next message sent a chill down my spine. "I saw you tossing and turning. You should really lock your windows." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. There was no way she could have known that. I checked my windows, and sure enough, the lock on the bedroom one was broken. That night, I barely slept. I kept hearing noises, footsteps in the hallway, whispers just outside my door. I tried telling myself it was all in my head, but when I woke up the next morning, there was something waiting for me on my kitchen table, a glass vial, just like the one in her video. I don't know how it got there. My apartment was locked, and I was alone. But there it was, filled with a deep red liquid. A note was taped to it, written in the same poetic style as her captions. "You let me in. Now I'll never leave." I unsubscribed from her page immediately and blocked her account. I even deleted my OnlyFans entirely, but it didn't stop there. The tapping at my window continued, night after night. Sometimes I'd wake up and find the glass fogged up with doom. I moved across the country a month later, desperate to start fresh. But even now, in my new apartment, thousands of miles away, I still feel like I'm being watched. Sometimes I get random emails with no subject line. When I open them, there's nothing inside but a single image. A vial of red liquid sitting on a candlelit table. And every time, I hear her voice in my head, whispering the words that haunt me to this day. You let me in. Now I'll never leave.